process 1 to stage 5. So as per the ultrasound, it can be unilocular anechoic lesion with double line sign. Probably double line is due to germinating layer and the pericyst layer. And consider this cyst as an active and further progressing to rosette like honeycomb cyst. And then further water lily sign suggestive of splitting of the or detachment of the membrane, germinating layer membrane from the pericyst, and persisting to inactive stages to with hypo and hyperkindness and calcifications. So WHO categorized them further in perspective of treatment. They said the stage 1 subcategorized to less than 5 centimeter, more than 5 centimeters. If it is isolated cyst of less than 5 centimeter, we can start an anti-helminthic management. And further, when it is active and more than 5 centimeter, we have to manage with medical as well as surgical. Then if it 4 and 5, we can simply observe it also. So coming back to our patient, it is C2, multiple rosette like or honeycomb appearance. So we decided to start albendazole, and after 1 week intervention, we planned for.
Kamal, I just want to interrupt for a minute here. There is a difference between rosette and honeycomb. Okay, what you're seeing here is a typical rosette. Which is, you see, like flower petals. The cysts are all at the periphery. Right? This is called a rosette arrangement. In honeycomb, it will typically be cysts packed tight close together. Okay, there's a difference between rosette and honeycomb.
Okay, thank you, sir. So in this CT and delayed images, we could see there was no communication between the cyst and the pelvic calyces system, but we still planned for an RGP since the ureter was very much kinked, and avoid ureteral injury during intervention. So while RGP, we noticed that there was a communication of the pelvic calyceal system with the cyst, especially the lower pole calyx. The contrast was dissipating into the cyst. Then we put in 6 French ureteric catheter as a retrograde catheter. During laparoscopy, we saw a large cyst which was adherent to the ascending colon and the right lower lobe of the liver. We mobilized the colon medially and placed the lap sponges all around. Then additional 12 mm transparent port was placed into the cyst and aspirated, cyst contents are aspirated, and later the cyst was irrigated by 3% hypertonic saline. Each cycle was like 200 ml were instilled. We wait for 5 minutes and then re-aspirated it. We did 5 cycles, therefore irrigating about 1 liter of hypertonic, my mistake is hypertonic saline through the same transparent port. The transparent port make that we can see the contents coming out, plus the pneumoperitoneum was maintained while we were suctioning the aspiration or the contents. Then later we excised the hydrated cyst, which was freely available and was removed in an endo bag. Thereafter, when we put a camera inside the cyst, we saw a communication of approximately 1 centimeter with the PCS. Then, which was being closed using the Stratafix suture. This is an absorbable V-log suture, and the histopathology reported to be right renal hydrated cyst. One thing then, due to we have done a closure, so prophylactically put stenting, and after 2 weeks, and after that, after that we put a Amentum into the cyst wall and a drain.
No, stent was placed.
No, stent was placed from down only, sir, not antegradally. And subsequently, sir, this patient post-op period was uneventful. He was discharged after 2 weeks. The stent was being removed. He's doing well, sir. So, and his albendazole anti-helminthic therapy was continued for 16 weeks with interval of after every 3 weeks, 1 week interval. Other options were we could have done open surgery also. And as far as the discussion is concerned, intraoperative.
Hold on. So, Ved Nagam, anybody is there? Puttaparthi?
Dr. Hardik.
Hardik is around.
Nobody is there?
Dr. Hardik, unmute your mic, please. Interesting.
Dispur also, no one?
Dispur is not coming for some time now. I think they don't have residents.
Okay, then.
Maybe we can ask one of Dr. Prabhakar's residents, Dr. Anand, Dr. Vinod.
Hello.
Hardik, good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
Welcome. So Dr. Manish has some questions for you.
Yes, sir.
Have you listened to the case or you just joined?
Listen, sir. Listen.
Okay, so my question is, please criticize the management of this case. What all would you disagree with?
Sir, we have to start pre-operative anti-helminthic also before. So cyst content will be sterile, sir.
Yeah, so pre-operative albendazole is to be started when? On the morning of surgery or?
Before, sir, at the time of diagnosis we have to start.
Okay, so Kamal, did we start albendazole?
Yes, sir, we started. As per the guideline, there is no particular time period when we have to start, but we started 1 week prior to the surgery.
Okay. Any other points where you would disagree?
We have to keep the, sir, mop or dose piece with soaked in the 3% hypertonic saline or Savlon and side by the cyst while puncturing and aspirating. If cyst content will spillage will occur, then it will restrict the reaction, sir.
Okay. Would you agree with the approach, laparoscopic versus opens? Remember, sometimes in the exam it is asked that, suppose you had to do it, how would you do it? Hardik?
Yes, sir.
Would you prefer open or laparoscopy?
open surgery, sir.
Okay, so if you're asked to criticize management, just see what has been done and what you think is wrong. Something else which is, as per the textbook, grossly wrong here.
We are not putting, sir, routinely RGC and doing RGP, sir.
That's all right. That was the surgeon's decision. He just wanted to make sure there's communication or no communication.
You may not put it, but do you have any objection to retrograde catheter being left?
But sir, cyst is communicating with the PCS, and patient don't have any hydaturia or that symptoms means in sign in urine examination.
No, Hardik, you said we don't put it. Now, the question that arises is it wrong to put it?
No, sir.
What Dr. Mansi would like to know.
No, sir. Not wrong, sir.
Okay. Anything else that you would disagree with? You need to know your theory for that. And the question has been asked. If you've answered it, you would know the theory. What is the recommended concentration of hypertonic saline?
3%. 10%, sir. Sorry.
How much?
20%.
10%.
20%.
In Campbell, it is mentioned 30%.
Yeah. So in one place it is 20%, in one place it is 30%. 20 to 30, whatever. It is definitely not 3%.
Okay, sir.
Is it available? I don't know.
Now you
In some
have to-
articles, some, sir, they written like 10%. In one article, they written 3%.
Yeah. So the textbook recommendation is much higher. It is not 3%.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay, fine, Hardik, you've seen this 3%, 10%, 20, 30. Why do you think hypertonic saline is used? What does it do? Why is it used?
It can, sir, sterilize the cyst content and prevent the anaphylactic reaction.
How does it sterilize the cyst?
So in the OT to sterilize instruments, why not use 30% saline?
It's the cyst scoliosis is there, sir. They destroy the scoliosis of the means that nematodes.
See, the question was, why do you think? So what do you think if I put hypertonic saline next to a cell, what will happen?
Dehydration will happen, sir. Cell wall.
Is there a better word for it?
Damage to the cell wall membrane, sir.
Okay. No, find the word for it. Yeah. So how does albendazole act? Anybody?
Yeah, I can answer that question, Manish.
Yes, sir.
Albendazole acts by destroying the cell wall, actually, the wall of the cyst wall, and then gets into it and causes cell death.
Yes, sir. So, Hardik, what other solutions would you possibly be able to use in this situation? And sorry, Hardik, you made another statement which is you now have to defend. You said that it reduces the risk of anaphylactic reactions. How does hypertonic saline reduce the risk of anaphylactic reaction?
Means, sir, it sterilizes the content of the cyst wall. If it will spillage will occur, then it restricts the content to spill into the peritoneum, sir. If we put the ghost piece socks in the hypertonic saline or a 10% povidone iodine or Savlon, sir.
Which part of the Echinococcus complex in the cyst provokes the anaphylactic reaction. What is it that causes the reaction?
Sir, hydrated sand that causes anaphylactic reaction.
What does hydrated sand consist of?
Hydrated sand. Come on. What is hydrated sand?
Wall.
Yeah.
We keep saying this before ejecting an answer in the exam from our mouths, we have to be careful. If you know about sand, mention sand. If you don't know, don't even bring it up unless the examiner brings it up. The question is,
Hydrated sands are the daughter cysts, sir? Small daughter cysts?
I don't know, you tell me.
Are you asking or are you?
No, I am answering, sir.
Are they daughter cysts, are they scoliosis, or are they all degenerative cyst wall?
So hydrated cysts are the small daughter cysts, sir, which are floating in the cyst.
Degenerated cyst wall also, sir, contains.
See, sand by definition settles at the bottom. Correct? So if it's floating around, it cannot be sand.
Sir, it has been confirmed while changing of position of the patient while doing an ultrasound.
I agree, Kamal. Sand settles at the bottom.
Yes, sir, exactly.
So what is it? What is that hydrated sand? Cysts should be floating. They won't settle at the bottom. And the second question which Hardik has to answer is, what is it that in an Echinococcus complex provokes anaphylaxis? Clearly, it has to be a protein. So where is that protein? What protein?
Don't know, sir. Name of the protein.
Hardik?
Sir, sorry, sir.
Anybody else? Forget about the name of the protein. At least tell us which part of the complex provokes anaphylaxis. The fluid, the cyst wall, the ruptured cyst wall, the nematode.
The fluid, sir.
So due to ruptured cysts, sir.
So what does the fluid contain then?
I'll phrase that question slightly differently, Mon.
Yes, actually.
What is the difference between the fluid in the hydrated cyst versus the fluid in a simple renal cyst? What's the difference? Both are cysts, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Simple renal cyst, you aspirate. Hydrated cyst, you aspirate. What is the difference between the two fluids? And why?
Sir, I suppose that the fluid secreted by the renal simple cyst is from the cyst wall, sir. And in hydrated, it is...
Stronger, what do you mean by stronger?
Sir, stronger? What, sir? Can you repeat, sir?
You said that the fluid secreted in the renal cyst is stronger.
No, not stronger, sir. I mean that it is secreted from the cyst wall, sir.
Which one?
The simple renal cyst fluid.
Uh-huh. And
And in the hydrated cyst, it is the infected hydrated cyst which secretes, which contains anaphylactoxin, and which causes anaphylaxis.
The other way around.
I have just come across the name of anaphylactoxin. Exactly, didn't come across the name of the protein.
Well, the test was called Cassoni test.
Yeah, yes.
It's a hydrated antigen, and this creates an antigen-antibody reaction, and it's positive in about 70% of people, not everybody. That is what provokes. That's what provokes the anaphylactic reaction in the human being when you do this test. But I asked you, what is the difference between if I aspirate a renal cyst, a simple renal cyst, and if I aspirate a hydrated cyst? What is the difference? And why is there this difference? See, a simple renal cyst, the fluid is always straw colored. Whereas if you aspirate a hydrated cyst, the fluid is absolutely crystal clear. Crystal clear fluid. Now, why is that? Because the hydrated fluid is not secreted by the human body. Whereas a simple renal cyst is colored, it is never crystal clear. It's a favorite question in the FRCS exam. If ever you go for the exam, this is one question that is always asked by the examiners in some viva or some specimen. This is the pretty favorite question. And it's because of the fact that the body is secreting the fluid. And therefore, there is always some degree of pigmentation, it's straw colored, some thing that is there within the body that exudes into the simple renal cyst, whereas it doesn't happen in hydrated. So that's the difference. So when you, by mistake, aspirate a cyst, you check it out. Next time you aspirate a simple renal cyst, you just check out the fluid. Look at it very carefully, you'll find it's not absolutely crystal clear. Means absolutely crystal clear like the water which comes from the Himalayas, not polluted as it comes down to Haridwar, straight from the source. Absolutely crystal clear. If you've seen hydrated fluid, you'll realize how clear it is. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So, Hardik, in that last image that Kamal showed, there is a part of the cyst wall which is left behind. So, do you agree with this incomplete excision?
Yes, sir. That it may contain within the it contain the parenchyma of the kidney. We can't remove, sir, full cyst. Means that.
So what are the? You'll have to tell me the 3 layers of the hydrated cyst wall.
Sir. Middle is, sir, scanalion layer. Or
You go from outside in or inside? Inside out?
Inside out, sir. Inside
Yeah, yeah.
out.
Okay, tell me the first layer. Germinal?
Internal germinal layer, sir.
Yeah.
Then scalocin layer, sir. And then pericystic layer, sir.
Anybody can translate that?
Middle layer.
So outside is the response of the body, which is called pericyst. Then germinal layer, and then innermost is the endocyst layer, which is active, and inside which there are brood capsules or daughter cysts.
Germinal.
In
Germinal layer is active layer.
Yeah, active layer starts from the germinal layer. So once we have removed all the endocyst and germinal layer, we are safe. The pericyst can be left behind because it is only the tissue response to the active cyst.
Do I have alternative drugs? Hardik? Other than albendazole, can I use anything?
Sir, mebendazole we can.
Yes. Anything else? You've not heard of praziquantel?
Yes, sir. Praziquantel.
Most effective is albendazole by the drug of choice, but if for some reason it cannot.
What is praziquantel used for? Which other condition is praziquantel used for? Another parasitic infection.
Schistosomiasis, sir.
Yes. It's a treatment of choice for that.
Any other fluids we can use, are they? You said 10% betadine and albuterol.
Savlon we can use, sir.
Savlon. Okay. Actimide. Codeine add-on.
Savlon having cetrimide, then chlorhexidine, then ethyl alcohol up to 95%. Silver nitrate. Formalin earlier it was being used, but nowadays not used.
When we were interns, we used formalin.
Yeah.
Sterile formalin was used we pack the whole, it was all liver usually. And they would pack the entire abdomen with the mops so that there is no spillage. And the sterile formalin used to come from the pharmacy. They used to sterilize it for us. And then this would be injected into the cyst. And then they would open this and take out all the daughter cysts. And this is to prevent all the spillage. There was a big drama doing a hydrated in theatre those days when we were interns. It was like something like doing a pheochromocytoma because you never know when the fellow will get an anaphylactic reaction under anesthesia. So anesthetists were also very tense about it.
So Hardik, there's no more questions, but the idea of presenting this case and giving you 2 weeks was for all of you, was to read a chapter which is otherwise not given much attention to. And it is an important exam case if it does come, either for theory or for practicals. So if you haven't read it up to now, please go back and read all the details about it.
In theory, it keeps coming.
Yes, sir.
No more questions from our side, sir.
Nothing from here too, unless somebody is wanting to ask a question.
Prabhakar?
You were able to do this whole thing laparoscopically?
Yes,
Did you go retro or transperitoneal?
it was transperitoneal. Then we have packed the pericyst cavity with the omentum, sir.
Okay. Are you continuing the patient on albendazole? It's mandatory to continue it post-operative for at least about 6 weeks.
Yes, we are giving 4 cycles, 3 weekly, then 1 break, then 4 cycles.
Sir,
Did you find out as to what was the reason? His chest was clear, isn't it? This fellow's chest was clear. We didn't see an X-ray of the chest.
Chest was clear. He is actually on veg and non-veg diet both, but he didn't have any dog exposure, sir.
Exposure to dogs is.
Exposure to dogs.
We were discussing as to how in a country like New Zealand, where they rear sheep and dogs because the dogs look after the sheep, and that there is no hydatid cyst there. Both these animals are involved in the propagation of hydatid disease. And it's amazing that because that country is so sterile, they don't have anything. They have never allowed anything to come in. If you go back in the history, they will tell you all this. They don't have even snakes and reptiles and rats and rodents, nothing at all. You know, it's such a sterile country. They've not allowed anything inside. They're very strict. So you see those sheepdogs nicely, you know, looking after the sheep, and the sheep are all in enclosures. They cannot move anywhere. So they are treated better than human beings in that country. No wonder New Zealand lamb is the world's most expensive and most delicious lamb. So people like Manish Sinha and all won't know what it tastes like. So it's all right.
We'll take your word for it.
Neither will you know, Mohan, what it tastes like.
No, I wouldn't. Yeah, I think the point has been well made by Dr. Manish. These are rare, but they crop up in theory papers, and you can get a clinical case. I'd suggest that you go back, whoever has access to the images, look at all those images, make sense of those images, and read up a little about the anti-helminthic drugs, particularly those used for nematodes. Because somebody might suddenly ask you why not this and why that, and so on. And of course, the surgical technique. Nowadays, a lot of things have moved away from open surgery. But if someone doesn't have expertise in laparoscopic surgery, it might still be better to do the conventional open surgery and clear the cysts out without spillage.
I have another suggestion. While we're on the topic of parasites, since this is a chapter which is not usually read, it might be a good idea if one of the residents volunteers to make a comparison between tuberculosis and schistosomiasis. I've been saying this to people, and nobody has taken up that challenge. But when I look at both these conditions, schistosomiasis and TB, I actually presented this at the Calicut meeting many years ago. And this was probably in 94, 95. And a comparison between TB and schistosoma in terms of how it causes changes in the genitourinary tract. When I say genital, I mean the whole, everything, kidneys, and both the medical and the surgical things that happen in these conditions. It's amazing to just make a comparison between these two. So it's worth looking at that aspect, and if one of the PGs can do that, it will be a good learning process.
Can you have the say in 2 weeks'